It was a sitcom with one of the most improbable origin stories in TV history. A quirky alien who appeared just twice on Happy Days, then got his own show. But Mork and Mindy didn't just succeed, it exploded, launching a comedy legend in the process. Behind the scenes, though, it was chaos. Studio blunders and reckless decisions turned this genius show into a textbook case of how to destroy a hit. This is the rise and fall of Mork and Mindy, the show that blasted off, then crashed and burned in just 4 seasons. Before we start, like this video if you watched Mork and Mindy back in the day, and subscribe for more retro TV deep dives. So let's start at the birthplace of Mork, the set of Happy Days. By 1978, Happy Days was already a television powerhouse. It had spun off Laverne and Shirley, was still dominating the ratings, and the producers were looking for ways to keep the show fresh. That's when Garry Marshall's young son reportedly asked a simple question that changed everything. Why not put a spaceman on Happy Days? On paper, it sounded absurd. A 1950s nostalgia sitcom featuring an alien? But this was the late 70s. Star Wars had just exploded into a cultural phenomenon, and TV executives were suddenly open to anything that hinted at sci-fi. So Marshall did what successful producers do. He leaned into the crazy idea and gave it a shot. The episode became My Favorite Orkin, a playful nod to My Favorite Martian. The writers introduced Mork, an alien from the planet Ork who arrives in Milwaukee and decides Richie Cunningham is a perfect specimen to abduct and study. The comedy was simple. Everyone treated him like just another oddball in Fonzie's world, barely reacting to the fact that he was an extraterrestrial. Now all they needed was someone who could convincingly play an alien. Several names were tossed around: Dom DeLuise, Roger Rees, Richard Lewis, but none of the auditions landed. Then a relatively unknown stand-up comedian named Robin Williams came in. His audition was so bizarre, so physical, and so unlike anything anyone had seen that the producers immediately recognized they had found someone special. He didn't just act like an alien. He moved like one, thought like one, and performed like he had been dropped onto the planet 5 minutes earlier. The episode aired in February 1978, and what everyone assumed would be a one-off gag suddenly became a massive hit. Viewers went wild. ABC's fan mail was flooded. Mork, with his offbeat greeting and his jittery, unpredictable energy, had somehow stolen the show from right under the Fonz's leather jacket. In the original airing, the whole encounter was written off as one of Richie's dreams. But the response was so massive that ABC made a rare decision. They re-edited the syndicated version to make Mork's appearance real instead of a dream sequence. That's how quickly the momentum hit. Within a matter of months, ABC made the call. Mork was getting his own series. Spinning off Mork was the easy part. The real challenge was figuring out what Mork and Mindy was actually supposed to be. The new series, developed by Garry Marshall, along with Dale McRaven and Joe Glauberg, moved the action from 1950s Milwaukee to present-day late 70s Boulder, Colorado. That solved one immediate problem. On Happy Days, Mork claimed he was from the future. Setting the show in a contemporary world meant the writers didn't have to bend over backward to keep the timeline straight. Next, they needed someone who could ground Robin Williams and survive him. Pam Dawber was cast as Mindy McConnell, the young woman who meets Mork after his egg-shaped spacecraft lands in Boulder. Dawber wasn't a slapstick comedian. She wasn't meant to compete with Williams's improvisational tornado. She was the straight woman, the anchor, the person who, in her own words, tried to be the eyes of the audience, while Robin darted off into comedic dimensions no script could predict. Around the two leads, the producers built a human world for Mork to collide with. Mindy's father, Fred McConnell, played by Conrad Janis, a music store owner perpetually baffled, and often skeptical, by the eccentric alien living in Mindy's attic. Her grandmother, Cora Hudson, who was far more open-minded and became one of Mork's earliest allies. These characters gave the show its essential balance. Mork's strangeness only worked because the world around him was solid, grounded, and recognizably normal. On paper, it all looked like a fairly standard sitcom with a sci-fi twist. But in practice, it became something entirely different. Because the moment Robin Williams stepped in front of the camera, every rule of conventional television went out the window. Traditional sitcoms live and die by their scripts. Writers craft the jokes, polish them, rewrite them, and the actors deliver the lines exactly as written. Mork and Mindy did not work that way. Very early on, the writers realized Robin Williams was operating on an entirely different level. He could take a single line, something simple, something ordinary, and expand it into 3 minutes of explosive improvisation. He shifted between characters, played with props, bounced off set pieces, and even folded the studio audience into the bit. It wasn't performance, it was combustion. And because of that, the scripts started to evolve. Pages that once held tightly structured dialogue suddenly had stage directions like, "Robin will do something here." Tom Poston, who later joined the show as the grumpy neighbor Mr. Bickley, remembered that scripts were noticeably shorter than normal because the writers deliberately left blank spaces, open zones where Robin could go off and do whatever Robin Williams did. The show wasn't exactly unwritten, but it definitely wasn't written the way sitcoms were supposed to be. But it wasn't chaos for chaos's sake. The improvisation sat inside a clear, reliable structure. Every week, Mork would collide with some human custom. Dating, friendship, jealousy, work, holidays. Misunderstand it completely and turn that misunderstanding into surreal comedy. And then, at the end of the episode, everything quieted down. Mork would report back to his unseen Orkin leader, Orson, explaining what he learned about humans that week. Those Orson reports weren't filler. They were the emotional anchor of the show. After 20 minutes of Robin's wild, physical, uncontainable energy, the final 2 minutes became surprisingly tender. Mork would speak plainly about loneliness, or love, or fear, or why humans break each other's hearts. And for a moment, a sci-fi sitcom about an alien became something honest. For ABC, this was gold, and they knew it almost immediately. Mork and Mindy premiered on ABC on September 14, 1978. The network rolled out the red carpet for it, a prime Thursday night slot, positioned to catch the enormous Happy Days audience that had already fallen in love with Mork. They didn't just follow him, they poured in by the millions. In its very first season, Mork and Mindy didn't slowly climb the charts. It shot straight to the top, becoming the third highest rated show on television, behind only Laverne and Shirley and Three's Company. Robin Williams went from relatively unknown comic to national sensation almost overnight. Kids mimicked the handshake on school playgrounds. That red suspenders and silver suit look turned into an instant pop culture uniform. Mork merchandise flew off store shelves. And this wasn't just hype. The show pulled in real acclaim. It earned Emmy nominations, including Outstanding Comedy Series and a lead actor nod for Williams. For a new sitcom, that kind of reception was almost unheard of. But what made Mork and Mindy work wasn't just the laughs or the catchphrases. It was the strange, delicate balance holding everything together. Mork wasn't simply a clown, he was lonely. He wasn't just there to cause chaos. He was desperately trying to understand why humans acted the way they did. And Pam Dawber didn't just straighten the narrative, she gave the show a heartbeat. The chemistry between her grounded warmth and Williams's unpredictable brilliance created an emotional center that kept all the anarchy from floating away. For a moment, ABC had lightning in a bottle. A breakout star, a hit show, a cultural phenomenon. But instead of leaning into what made the show a hit, ABC got nervous. Executives worried the show was too strange, too dependent on Robin Williams' improvisation, too adult in some of its themes, and they became convinced they could attract an even younger audience if they tweaked the formula. So between seasons 1 and 2, Mork and Mindy was aggressively retooled. Some of the changes were surface level. The soft, almost wistful theme music was tossed out and replaced with a brighter, disco-influenced arrangement. A 1979 attempt to make the show sound younger, fresher, and more in step with the era. But the real overhaul happened in the cast and the storytelling. Mindy's father, Fred, and grandmother, Cora Hudson, key emotional anchors in the first season, were quietly written out, sent away on an orchestra tour. In their place came a batch of new characters: Remo and Jeannie Da Vinci, the New York siblings who ran a neighborhood deli; Nelson Flavor, Mindy's self-important cousin with political ambitions; and more comedic bits for the neighbor, Mr. Bickley. The intention was clear: create a bigger ensemble, add more traditional sitcom plots, dial down the weirdness. At the same time, the writers shifted focus away from Mork's discovery of human customs and leaned harder into a potential romance between Mork and Mindy. It wasn't a bad idea on its own. It just wasn't what audiences had shown up for. And then came the scheduling move. ABC pulled the show out of its comfortable Thursday slot and dropped it onto Sunday nights at 8 p.m., placing it in direct competition with Archie Bunker's place in NBC's Chips. On paper, it was a strategic programming decision. In practice, it was the kind of move that kills momentum. They changed the time slot so viewers couldn't find it. They changed the cast so it no longer felt familiar. They changed the tone so it no longer felt like the show people had fallen in love with. When season 2 premiered with this new setup, the audience didn't just notice. They drifted away, and the ratings told the story. In a single year, Mork and Mindy went from the 3rd highest rated show on television to 27th place. Panic set in. ABC knew the season 2 overhaul had backfired, and they scrambled to repair the damage. The first step was scheduling. They nudged Mork and Mindy back toward its old Thursday-adjacent slot, hoping viewers would return if they could simply find the show again. And creatively, the team began steering season 3 back toward what had worked in the beginning. The hour-long season 3 premiere even spelled it out in the title, putting the orc back in Mork. It was a direct signal to the audience and a quiet admission that the show had drifted off course. Mindy's father, Fred, and grandmother, Cora Hudson, returned to the cast. The scripts leaned again into Mork's alien misunderstandings instead of pushing the romance front and center. Some of the season 2 additions stayed. Remo and Jeannie now ran a full restaurant instead of just a deli, and Nelson Flavor shifted into a more comedic, less political role. But the pendulum was clearly swinging back toward the original tone. And yet, the scars from the previous year remained. Viewers who had tuned out didn't automatically come back. The constant retooling made the show feel unstable. Robin Williams was now a full-fledged superstar, which only magnified every flaw and every rating drop. Behind the scenes, the pressure was relentless. Scripts still left room for Robin's improvisation, but ABC wanted more structure, more traditional sitcom plots, more relatable hooks they could promote in weekly ads. The creative team was caught between honoring the show's identity and satisfying a network desperate for order. The ratings didn't rebound. By the end of season 3, Mork and Mindy had slipped to around 49th place in the Nielsen rankings. The series was now stuck in the worst place any hit show can land. Too famous to cancel without embarrassment, too damaged to fix with small adjustments. So ABC reached for something big. For season 4, ABC agreed to bring Mork and Mindy back. But once again, they wanted changes. And this time, the changes cut straight to the heart of the show. At the start of the season, Mork and Mindy got married. From the network's point of view, this was gold. A big wedding episode, guest stars, promotional hype, something splashy they could plaster across TV Guide and magazine covers. But from a character perspective, it fundamentally altered the dynamic that had powered the show from the beginning. The alien learning about humanity, and the human helping him navigate it, suddenly became a conventional married couple setup. Then came the boldest, strangest decision of all, giving Mork and Mindy a child, played by Jonathan Winters. Winters was Robin Williams' comedy idol, a legendary improviser, and someone Williams had grown up studying. The producers leaned heavily into Orkin biology to justify it. Orkins aged backwards, so their child, Mirth, would be born not as a baby, but as a fully grown adult. That's how Jonathan Winters ended up hatching out of an egg as Mork and Mindy's son. On paper, it was inspired, pairing one improv genius with another. In practice, it created problems the show struggled to contain. Scenes with Williams and Winters could explode into unscripted chaos that was nearly impossible to shape into a tight 22-minute sitcom. Pam Dawber's grounded emotional presence, the show's anchor, had less room to breathe. And viewers who already felt the show had changed too much were now asked to accept yet another reinvention. ABC also stacked the season with special guest stars, a classic sign of a network trying to revive interest with stunts instead of trusting the core premise that made the show work in the first place. When the dust settled, the ratings told the truth. Mork and Mindy finished season 4 around 61st place. The rocket ship that had launched near the top of the charts in 1978 was now sputtering, barely holding altitude. In the summer of 1982, ABC canceled Mork and Mindy. Looking back, it almost seems unbelievable that ABC managed to blow a show with Robin Williams at its center. Even in the moment, people understood he was different, that this was the kind of performer you only get once, and yet the network kept tweaking, retooling, and second-guessing until the whole thing fell apart. And the strange thing is, Mork and Mindy didn't become a giant rerun powerhouse like other shows, at least not right away. Early syndication numbers were modest. The show didn't truly find a second life until the 90s, when Nick at Night brought it back and introduced Mork to a new generation of kids staying up too late. And really what they were watching was Robin Williams' origin story, the same way people look back at Tom Hanks on Bosom Buddies or Jim Carrey on In Living Color. Because even though Mork and Mindy cratered in its later years, that first season was enough to cement Robin Williams as a phenomenon. And from there, his career took off like a rocket. He leapt into films like Good Morning Vietnam and Dead Poets Society. He became the genie in Aladdin. He headlined Mrs. Doubtfire, The Birdcage, and Jumanji, and he won an Oscar for Good Will Hunting. Drama, comedy, family films, animation. He could do everything, and he did it with a kind of intensity and heart nobody else could match. Mork and Mindy didn't survive the missteps around it, but Robin Williams did. And in the end, that may be the show's biggest legacy. It captured the moment when a once-in-a-generation talent first stepped into the light. And really for that, we need to thank the young son of producer Garry Marshall, who begged for a spaceman to appear on Happy Days. That one idea sparked one of the greatest American performers of all time. Thanks for watching, and drop your favorite Robin Williams role or memory in the comments.
Nanu! Nanu!